Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
Welcome to Women's Hoops and Talks, the What podcast, where we are elevating the voice of women in basketball. I'm Tara.
I'm Cassidy. Thank you so much for listening today. We've got a great show coming up. We've got Kayla Osby, writer for the Denver Stiffs. Kayla, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me on.
Well, before we get into our interview with Kayla and our famous icebreaker, which, oh my gosh, Cassidy, you come up with the greatest icebreaker. Let me remind everyone that you can follow Hoops and Talks on Twitter at Hoops and Talks. You can subscribe to the show in the Blazers Edge podcast feed, on whatever platform you use to get your podcasts. So let's get started. Cassidy, you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I'm wondering if you had to wear one t-shirt with one word on it for the rest of the season, including the playoffs, what would it say? Or not one word, I guess, one phrase.
One phrase? Okay.
Thank God.
Yeah, one word was too hard.
Yeah. So we actually, the Denver Stiffs and D-Line Company actually have a t-shirt with this phrase already, and I actually own it, but it was a quote from Michael Malone after the Nuggets beat the Lakers at the Pepsi Center. And the Nuggets, whenever they tend to play the Lakers or really any like big market team, there's a lot of fans from other arenas or from other fan bases that come out. And so he just said a quote that said, it's fine. Those fans can come here just as willing as they're willing to take that L on the way out. So there's a t-shirt that says take the L on the way out. And it's kind of just like become the biggest quote of the whole season. And I'd say probably every Nuggets fan kind of knows about that. So that would probably be the phrase.
I like it. It. Tara, do you have one?
Oh my gosh. You go first, Cassidy. I'm still digesting it. I'm such a talker that limiting myself to just a phrase is really hard. So you go first.
Okay, so I'm going with a slight twist on the 2006 playoff slogan for the Blazers, which was Never Doubt Rip City, but I think should be Never Doubt the Power of Rip City.
Oh, so how do you differentiate?
I think that Never Doubt Rip City was more focused on that team and everything that happened, but I think we should focus on the whole community that has band together and that we're going to fight through all of this together. So
I love
kind of the power of the whole as a whole.
That makes a lot of sense, considering what happened with Nurkic and how everybody has like really come together. So if I was going to have just one thing on my t-shirt, I already have the I'm Trying Jennifer t-shirt, which obviously I love. But I think I would amp it up just a little bit. And it would just be, again, a modification of other T-shirts that the Blazers have put out in the past. And I'm just going to say believe, because at this point, that's the most that we can do as fans anyway, is just keep all that positive energy in our minds for the team, So yeah, it's not terribly creative, but I think that's kind of where I am right now. Believe.
Yeah, I considered that actually. So it's funny you say that.
It was funny because like several years ago, I remember when they did the t-shirt. I felt like there was this point in time where the t-shirts that the Blazers put out every year were just like sort of escalated in desperation every year. Like kind of as the team was struggling, it would be like, believe, rise, please rise. For goodness sakes, please, God, believe in us. That's not what they actually said, but that's what it felt like during those years when it was a little bit rougher. Anyway, well, Kayla, we were so happy to have you join us today. The Blazers are getting ready to play Denver twice. So we were like, okay, we got to learn more about Denver.
Yeah.
Before we go into that, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into basketball.
Yeah, so I've been a fan for I think since the 2003 season, so about over like 15 years. Started watching when I was in like, I think 5th or 6th grade. And I don't really know how I started. Like, I don't remember ever like sitting down to watch a Nuggets game for the first time. I think I probably just, I've always been like, I was kind of a tomboy. I'm an identical twin. And that was kind of the thing that I used to separate myself from my twin is I kind of just was the one that liked sports. So, and I liked playing basketball. So I think I just probably started watching it and then got hooked just from the beginning. And I've been watching it ever since. So yeah, it's kind of, it's the thing I used to kind of identify myself.
So do you have like a special affinity for other basketball players who are twins?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's cool. I don't know how big of a fan I am. I'm like you mean like in the NBA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the Lopez brothers. Let's see.
Yeah, I like the Lopez brothers. I'm not like a huge fan of the Morris twins, but yeah, I like the Lopez brothers, definitely.
Cassidy, do you remember if Horace and Harvey were twins?
I don't.
The Grants? I can't remember.
I don't.
I think they might have been, but I'm not sure at all. Sorry, I just got us completely derailed.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
So we're about to meet up with the Nuggets twice in a row with the Blazers.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be an interesting back-to-back. Is there anything special about the Nuggets that kind of defines the team and who they are historically and then also now?
Yeah, I mean, I would say historically, it's just the fact that, you know, the Nuggets have not had a lot of success just in their time in the league. They've never won a championship. They've never, I don't think they've never even made the finals. So that would probably just be the biggest thing is the Nuggets are kind of known around the league as just a team that, you know, they've had a lot of really good regular seasons, but not a lot of playoff success, especially in the last 15 years. There's only been like one time that they've made it out of the first round. So that's why this season is really exciting because obviously they have a chance to do that, but also, you know, they're still competing for that first seed, which not a lot of people probably think that that's going to happen just with the schedule that's remaining is pretty tough, but the Nuggets have never had the first seed. So that would be really special as well.
It would also get Portland out of Golden State's bracket, most likely. So I think that would be pretty cool also.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be good.
What was the favorite team or some of the teams that really stood out to you, especially like when you were just getting into them?
Definitely 2008, 2009 was the year that they went to the conference finals with Chauncey Billups and Melo. So that definitely stands out because that was the only time that I've seen the Nuggets get out of the first round. Because before that it was just, you know, obviously Melo and there was like Kenyon Martin and Marcus Camby and Nene. There was a lot of really good teams, but they always went up against a better team in the first round, like the Spurs or Lakers, and it just never it was never able to advance beyond that. But after that, definitely the 2013 season as well. After the Melo trade, when they were able to win 57 games, and unfortunately, it's why I sympathize so much with the Blazers fans and the Nurkic injury because Gallo had that season-ending injury less than a month, I think, before the season ended, and that kind of that definitely affected things, and we weren't able to beat Golden State.
Who were some of the most like beloved Nuggets over the years?
I would definitely say, I mean, for me, I don't know how other people felt. I liked Earl Boykins. He was always, I think, a fan favorite. Just, you know, he's one of the shortest players, obviously, to ever play. And so I kind of always had an affinity for him. And then, I mean, Chauncey Billups is probably just an icon just because he's from Denver. So it was always really special that he was able to come back to Denver after his first stint with the Nuggets when he was, you know, much earlier in his career, and then able to take us to the conference final. So he's probably my favorite Nugget of all time.
I love watching Chauncey on, what is he, on The Jump? He's, you know, when he talks, is he someone who like always seemed like he had the personality that he would be on TV, or is he like looking at more like management type roles? I can't, you know, what was, you know, as he moved on, what were people's thoughts about him?
Yeah, he definitely has the personality for TV. I think he always said that he wanted to be in a front office. So I think that's probably still his goal. I know a lot of like Nuggets fans kind of dream about him being a head coach of the Nuggets someday, but I think he said that that's not really his plan. But yeah, he definitely has a personality for TV, and yeah, I enjoy those segments as well. He had like a segment where he interviewed Jamal Murray and Jokic, and I really I enjoyed that.
Yeah, he's great to watch. Mm-hmm. So you've got a few former Blazers on the team, and we wanted to check in on how they're doing. How are Will Barton and Mason Plumlee?
They're good. So Will Barton's obviously he hasn't been able to find really his rhythm yet since coming back from the injury. He had that he had that hip injury the second game of the season, and came back just like a couple months ago, and he really hasn't found his groove since then, but he's had good games. But if he's able to show flashes of the player that he was like last season in the playoffs, I think he's going to be like the biggest X factor for us. And then Mason Plumlee has just been a really solid backup to Jokic. He's just he's a good passer. He's a good defender. He just brings the energy every single night. And he just doesn't make a lot of mistakes. So he's also been really good for us.
What was it like when that whole trade went down and they got to the team?
It was, I think people kind of expected that it was going to happen. I know the general feeling was that a lot of fans were kind of upset that we didn't get a huge return for Nurkic, because obviously we knew he could be a starter on most teams in the league. So, and the other thing was that a lot of fans probably didn't like that we traded for a backup center, because obviously Jokic is going to be our starter. So they thought it was kind of, I don't know. And then when we signed Plumlee to that big contract, a lot of fans thought that it was too much to pay for a backup center. But I think the opinion has changed a lot since then, because you need a backup center that can come in and kind of play the same way that Jokic does. So I think people will really kind of turn around. And I think looking back, I think it was actually a good trade for both teams.
One of my favorite things about Mason was always seeing him around town, because he's known to want to try all the new foods and things that are going on. Mm-hmm. Is he known for that in Denver too?
Yeah, and I remember they did Altitude TV did a segment where they took him to like an art museum or something, because I guess he's really into art. So I think he is pretty into getting around the town and experiencing different things.
Does he still do all those backwards dunks?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does like at least one a game. Yeah,
I miss those so much.
Yeah.
I want to back up to Will Barton a minute. Will Barton is one of those players that Portland just still absolutely adores. And I think part of it was maybe we felt like we got cheated out of seeing him really blossom. So could you take us through a little bit about what that was like? Because he did come into his own. We want to experience it.
Yeah, it's been really fun, and it's just always fun when a player comes in from a different team, from another team where he didn't really get the chance to get playing time, and then the opportunity that on the new team kind of allows him to do that. And yeah, I mean, he came in when he came to the Nuggets. I mean, they just weren't a good team yet. We were still missing the playoffs and a lottery team, so he obviously had a lot of opportunity. And a lot of, a big chance to kind of prove himself. And that's what he did. And it's been really cool to see his growth from coming in from, a situation where he wasn't playing to earning playing time. And now he's a starter after the Nuggets traded Wilson Chandler in the offseason. Now he's getting the chance to be a starter. So that's why it was really upsetting to see that injury the second game of the season, because he was finally starting to, be, I think, where we always thought he could be. But hopefully it's just been really fun to kind of see his growth.
One of the things I loved about watching him is he always seemed like, more than anybody I'd ever seen, somebody who just loved playing basketball. He just played with pure abandon,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he just has a lot of fun, and he's a big personality, I think, too, in the locker room. And the media members absolutely love him too. Just he's just always so willing to talk to them, and he's very honest as well. So he's just a great presence.
What was with him fist bumping a baby?
Yeah, that went like a viral clip. Yeah, that was. Yeah, he's done like a couple things like that have just been like. There was one instance where I forgot what team we were playing, but a player lost his shoe and he kind of just checked it to the other side. Yeah. But yeah, he's just a really fun player to watch.
Yeah, I love the one where he's walking off the court and there's this like man, I think, standing there holding his baby, and he just like fist bumps the baby and just keeps walking. And I'm like, that's why he's the people's champ. Do they still call him the people's champ, or was that just a Portland thing?
They do. I mean, I think it's still a thing here.
I mean, he came in as Will the Thrill, which, you know, I still have my Will the Thrill t-shirt, which I will admit I wear underneath when they play the Nuggets. I often have my Will the Thrill t-shirt on.
Nice.
Are there any fan favorites that we should watch out for?
I'd say this season it's definitely Monte Morris. A lot of, fans might not, his stats like aren't anything crazy, but the thing is he just doesn't make any mistakes, and he's just there's actually been a lot of fans probably that wouldn't like be opposed to him starting over Murray, which is I don't know if that would be called for, but he's just a really he doesn't really turn the ball over. He's a good shooter. He just doesn't make mistakes, so I think he's definitely the fan favorite this season.
So Jusuf Nurkic used to play for Denver, and he got traded to Portland, and then he recently just got injured. When Jusuf Nurkic came to Portland, we heard one side of the story. We heard that he had gotten displaced by Jokic, and he was disgruntled and unhappy, and so he came to Portland, was able to find playing time. Kind of what. I wonder if you could just kind of reflect on what you remember of Nurkic's time in Denver.
Yeah, it was kind of just a roller coaster because when he came in as a rookie, fans were really, really excited about him, and there were comparisons to like DeMarcus Cousins, and it became clear that he was going to be really good. But then obviously with Jokic, when he came to the league, it obviously was very clear that Jokic was probably even better. I think Jokic went up to Malone at one point a couple years ago and just said, he just knew it wasn't, he didn't want to there to be that conflict. So he got asked he just said, just take me off the bench. But then it became, obvious that Jokic was the better player, and Malone opted to put Jokic back in as a starter. And I think that was kind of the beginning of the downfall. But yeah, it was never like, fans obviously loved Nurkic and they loved Jokic as well. And I think that the thing that obviously was upsetting the fans was just the way that Nurkic kind of took everything personally. And but yeah, I mean, just in general, it was really fun him being on the team. And it's kind of a bummer that we didn't get to have both of them, because that would have been a very, very interesting it just would be obviously a very interesting thing to have both of them on the team, but you can't really start both of them together. And Nurkic wasn't, he wanted to be a starter, which obviously he deserves to be. So it just didn't work out. But
how has Denver reacted to kind of the aftermath of the Nurkic injury? Has there been, I've seen quite a bit of outpouring of love from Denver.
Yeah.
Does it feel like that?
Yeah, definitely. It's been, I think it's always emotional, obviously, when you see a player have an injury like that. And I think it just kind of hits closer to home when it's a player that was once on your team. So yeah, I haven't seen like any negative reaction about it at all. Cause I don't think any fan obviously is happy about that in any kind of way. And yeah, I mean, if anything, it bums me out too, because, we play Portland twice, and Nurkic was always the, since he's been in Portland, he's been the reason why I look forward to playing Portland, just because it's that matchup is really fun. And it's just a bummer that he's not going to get to be in the playoffs, because the playoffs are just obviously more exciting if everybody has their players. So yeah, it's just been a real bummer, and I think Nuggets fans definitely feel for him.
Well, let's talk about those upcoming games. Just so strange. The schedule has felt so weird for Portland this year.
Yeah.
Did it feel weird for Denver this year, or did it just seem like regular years?
It's kind of felt, I mean, I know, we always knew that the last month of the season would be really tough. And if you just look at the schedule, it's kind of insane. And, we play Minnesota the last game of the season, which, we obviously played them the last game, last season. They won, which is why they got to go to the playoffs and we didn't. But yeah, I mean, it's felt pretty typical.
I bet you're feeling some real revenge coming on for that last game of the season then.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because now Minnesota's not even,
they can't be.
We went one way and they kind of went the other, obviously, with Jimmy Butler. So, but yeah, I thought that was kind of funny that the schedule makers did that.
Yeah. Real interesting. Well, so in terms of how the Blazers and the Nuggets are going to play each other, in your opinion, what do you think the Nuggets are really good at?
Definitely. Well, offense is definitely the thing that's kind of separated us from a lot of teams this season. The starting five that we have is just really good and can outscore most starting fives in the league. It's just been when the defense isn't really there. And, sometimes the offense isn't as good as it should be. But, if the starting five outscores the other team starting five, and then the bench comes in and just kind of stays afloat, usually we have a pretty good chance at winning. But, it's been, especially the last couple of weeks, there's been some kind of inconsistency issues. So hopefully that's not an issue in the next couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think the keys to beating the Nuggets are? We're getting inside info now.
Yeah, definitely. If they can limit if a team can limit what Jokic does, that would probably be helpful. Sometimes Jokic takes himself out of the game if he just elects to kind of be a playmaker more than a scorer. So teams obviously try to make him do that. That would probably be the biggest thing. And then just a lot of pressure probably with Murray. Sometimes Murray doesn't handle pressure like in the backcourt especially well. So that could also be effective.
What are some of the storylines that people in Denver are watching for going into the playoffs? I mean, are people feeling really confident because they've had such a great regular season? Are they worried because of lack of playoff experience? What are like some of the main like talking points with fans right now?
I'd say definitely that fans have probably fans in Denver probably have higher expectations than like analysts and fans kind of anywhere else around the league. And yeah, it's exactly because of the experience issue. But it's exciting because we're just really looking forward to hopefully getting the chance to prove that we can win in the playoffs. But it's kind of crazy because it's like, it doesn't really matter who we match up in the first round. I bet a lot of people are going to pick the other team just because of the lack of playoff experience. So that's probably the biggest thing. The Nuggets haven't been in the playoffs for 6 years. And there's not a lot of players on this roster that have been to the playoffs. There's, Paul Millsap and Plumlee and, Isaiah Thomas, but he's probably not going to get a lot of playing time. But there's just, everybody else, the players that are going to be getting a lot of minutes haven't been there before. So obviously that could be an issue. But we're just hoping that the talent and, good coaching and all of that can kind of overcome it.
Now, in Portland, people talk a lot about, well, obviously after last year's playoff exit, it got even more intense. But, one of the hobbies, I think, of a lot of Portland fans are talk about all the different ways that they would redo the roster. And, there's a big, should Dame and CJ be separated so that they can get somebody else for CJ, blah, 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 blah. Are there any hot topics like that?
I'd say, it might be that just with the amount of the amount of depth that we have in the backcourt with Gary Harris, Jamal Murray, and then Malik Beasley having a breakout season, there's been kind of talks that we'll have to probably trade one of them because you can't pay all three of them probably as much as they deserve to be paid. So that's definitely something that we're kind of watching out for, especially with this season. my opinion is kind of switched on that. This is, a few months ago, it would have been, oh yeah, definitely. We got to keep Harris and Murray. We have to keep them intact, and we can trade Beasley. But Beasley's been so key for us in the last few months, especially when we were dealing with all those injuries. And he's obviously so young and has so much potential that, it's tough knowing that we might have to kind of break up that those three guys. But yeah, I'd say it's probably focused around the backcourt, especially when you consider Monte Morris and how good he's been for us.
Yeah, you have a lot of young players, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're I think the fourth youngest team in the league, something like that.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who are some of the older players on the team?
So it's pretty much it's Millsap, Isaiah Thomas, Plumlee and Barton have more experience than most. Mm-hmm. They're not old by any means, but I think the oldest is Millsap. So everybody else is pretty young.
Well, that's a young, exciting team.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it sounds like there's going to be years to look forward to. And how about the coach? Can you tell us a little bit about your coach?
Yeah, so he's been he's been really good this season. I think he's improved probably just as much as the players have. He's always been a player that's been he's always been a coach that's been very good at communicating with players. And so, the Nuggets kind of knew that when they signed him, but the question was always if, just if he could put together a winning team. And I'd say the only thing that people still kind of don't like about him sometimes is rotations. And, sometimes he plays guys longer than they should and, doesn't play other guys as much as he should. But I think he's made really big strides in that this season. And I think fans have really come around to him. And obviously I think he should be a coach of the year candidate. So he's been really good.
The fan base sounds like so satisfied without
Yeah.
I guess winning helps, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Has it always been like that? I mean, has the fan base, they, at least in your experience, seemed pretty patient, or during a lot of years were they real anxious for change and things like that?
I would say they're really anxious for change, and it's definitely frustrating when you have a team that just continues to be knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. So those were kind of the bad years. Second only to the 6 years that we didn't even make the playoffs. So it was always, there's always been a lot of frustration. And during those years that we didn't make the playoffs, it was just it was always kind of weird because it never felt like the organization was fully invested in tanking or anything like that. It just kind of happened that they never made the playoffs. But I think this season it's really exciting because obviously we've had so much success in the regular season, and I'd say no matter how the next 2 weeks play out, it would go down as pretty successful. But it doesn't mean anything if we're not able to advance, because before the season started, I would say, making the playoffs and just playing in the first round would be a success. But, when you almost, when you have at least probably the second or probably the top three seed in the Western Conference, you definitely want to advance.
Yeah, absolutely. We know that as a Portland base.
Boy, do we. Cassidy, it strikes me as I was listening to Kayla talk, it strikes me that, like, I forgot that Denver has, like, a bunch of other, big, giant teams. They have baseball and they have football. And in Portland, we have soccer and basketball, and that's it. I mean, do you think that either of you, I'm just kind of curious, like, do you think that has to do with how much, fans are always looking at wanting to make changes or thinking that things should be different? Maybe in Denver, they're just distracted by the other teams too. What's it like to have so many big teams in your market?
Yeah, it's crazy. And the Nuggets have honestly been just kind of like the little brother of the Broncos. And it's tough, like even just living in Denver, it's kind of tough to find Nuggets fans. It's getting obviously a lot better this season, but before it's just kind of, I got used to just not, going to stores and there being like whole sections devoted to the Broncos. And there's like one stand of like Nugget stuff. And And that's just kind of been my experience as a Nuggets fan this entire time. And obviously success is the one thing that changes that. But I mean, the town, I think, has always been a Broncos town, and it probably will be for the foreseeable future. But people are definitely starting to come around to the Nuggets.
Yeah, I think we walk into a store and it's almost all Blazers stuff. And then there's like a rack of Timbers stuff and a half rack of Thorns stuff, which is disappointing. But Tara, you got anything else?
I think that just about covers it for me. Like I said, we've got these Denver games coming up. We are actually going to be in Denver for that game. So do you have any good tips for us for like around the arena or good places to eat or what we should do and make sure we take in while we're there?
Totally. Yeah. I'm also going to be at the game on Friday, but, I don't have too much. It's crazy because the experience at the Pepsi Center has just been completely different this season. In seasons past, it's not a lot of people show up, and the ones that do kind of don't get into it. But this season, that's definitely changed. And so, it's probably going to be pretty packed, and people are definitely gearing up for the playoffs. So it's going to be exciting. And I think it's going to be fun.
Is the arena like close into town, or is it like outside of town?
It's close. It's within walking distance to like the downtown area. It's maybe like 15 to 20 minutes away, like walking. So it's pretty close, and it's right next to the where the Broncos play too. So it's right next to everything.
Well, no offense, but we'd love to have an upset.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that. And Blazers fans probably need that something to cheer about. So
yes,
because we don't have CJ right now either.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So it's Damian and everyone else.
Yeah.
And every time Damian touches the ball, I'm just like, oh God, please don't get hurt. Please don't get hurt. I'm so stressed out about that. Like last night they played Detroit and they were, the Blazers were down by 10, and I'm never in a situation. I'm like the last person to ever say the game is over. I mean, there'll be 30 seconds left and we'll be down by 10. And I'll be like, okay, that's 3 3-pointers and 2 times getting fouled. And we've got this, Yeah. But I don't know, Cassidy, it's been so long since we've had 2 major players out that I have not felt this stressed in a long time about other people getting injured.
I'm a wreck watching games. Yeah. I'm like, nobody touched them.
I know. I was just like, take Damian out.
But you do what you got to do.
Damian would never say take me out. That's for sure.
Never. Well, Kayla, how can our listeners find you and all of your takes on basketball?
Twitter is @NuggetChica. And they can find me on Denver Stephs. I do a monthly recap of the Nuggets, just kind of recapping the month that they've had. So, I have an article coming out on Monday about that if they want to kind of know about the Nuggets in the past month. But, it's Twitter @NuggetChica.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you guys so much for having me on.
So, Cassidy, do you have a coffee talk for us this week?
I do not, but I know that you were recently in Memphis and came up with one, and we're actually going to be playing Memphis pretty soon, or just did, depending on when the podcast comes out.
Oh, yes, that's right. I did mention that, didn't I? When I was in Memphis, I went to the Johnny Cash Museum, and they actually have a little coffee shop inside it, and they had a coffee there called a brew named Sue. So I absolutely had to try that because I love that song, A Boy Named Sue, and how could you turn down a coffee called A Brew Named Sue? I can't describe it the way you do with all of your fancy coffee lingo, but I will say that it was a light roast, but very flavorful for a light roast. Sometimes I find light roasts just kind of taste like grass, like they don't have a lot of other tones, but this one definitely had other stuff. This one definitely had other stuff going on, and I felt very pro thinking, oh, I'm going to make sure that I talk about this on the podcast. So I don't know which Blazer would, be the best matchup for that. But I've also been thinking about coffee a lot because obviously Yusuf Nurkic is a big coffee drinker, and I'm like, okay, we got to like send him something or something for his rehab. Make sure he stays well caffeinated when the time comes for him to get back into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like we need to put together a coffee talk package of all the coffees we've recommended. And then he can let us know if he thinks they actually match his teammates.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. Well, I guess that'll about do it for this edition of Women's Hoops and Talks. You can find me on Twitter at TCBBiggs, and Cassidy is at Cassidy Gemmett. You can also find the Hoops and Talks podcast at Hoops and Talks. And once again, if you like what you've heard, you can subscribe to the Blazers Edge podcast. Our episodes come out every other Thursday. I think that's going to be about it for now. Again, thanks once again to Kayla for joining us. Thank you, Cassidy, and we will check you all later.